Hi teachers, my name is Anna. I'm here to talk to you about the Jewish Living Experience exhibition, which you've booked your pupils in to come and visit. Just some information and some photos about the exhibition so that you feel comfortable and confident before you arrive at the exhibition. Firstly, I'd like to thank Ben and everyone at Essex Sacre for organising this to happen. I know hopefully there's going to be a lot of pupils coming through the doors, and hopefully it'll be a really positive experience, a hands-on learning experience for pupils, as well as something interesting for teachers as well. So I'm going to share my screen. Thank you for your patience. And use a PowerPoint to talk you through some information. Okay, so first of all, who am I and where did this exhibition come from? So as I said, my name's Anna. I'm the education officer for an organisation called the Board of Deputies of British Jews, which represents the diverse British Jewish community across the UK. And we have this exhibition which has been going for over 40 years now, obviously in different guises. And even its name has changed, but currently it's known as the Jewish Living Experience Exhibition. So there are my contact details, that's my email address, and I'll put it up again at the end. So part of my job as education officer is to support the teaching of Judaism. And part of my job is to work with this exhibition and to arrange for it to be hosted in different places by different people, mainly for children to see it, but as you'll see, not just for pupils and children to learn. So the exhibition is made up of 15 banners currently and many boxes of artifacts which can all be handled. So here's a couple of photos so you can get an idea of what the exhibition looks like. You can see the banners are about 6 foot and they have text and images on. And the text on there is theoretically child friendly. It traditionally has been aimed at primary schools or upper primary schools. Younger children can use the photos more, and secondary schools have used this. Even adult groups have used it quite happily, but the text is kind of hopefully accessible to most people. So you can see with many of the banners, not all of them, there are tables of objects which the pupils can investigate, hold, look at, which link into the information on the banners. So you can see on the right-hand side a Passover table with different Passover objects on, and then the Passover banner next to it explaining what they are. And on the left, you can see this boy has actually taken objects from a couple of different tables. We have a table of items of religious dress, cultural and religious clothing. So he's taken the talit, the prayer shawl from there, and the kippah, the skull cap. But he's also in his hand got a shofar, a ram's horn, which is blown traditionally at the Jewish New Year to announce the coming of the new year. And you can see the banner behind says Rosh Hashanah, which means head of the year or new year. So here are a couple more images. On the left, you can see one of our, she's actually a deputy, somebody who's a volunteer in our organisation, who's very involved with educational work. Sheila, she is working with a group of secondary school students answering their questions and showing them objects. So we're, generally speaking, when we have the exhibition in different places, we try and ask members of the local Jewish community to come and be volunteer guides, to talk to the pupils, to bring it to life a little bit more, to answer questions. I'm not sure if there are going to be Jewish volunteer guides for your pupils when you visit the exhibition. There might be, but if not, which I'll come to in a minute, you can always ask me if you have questions or if your pupils have questions. So on the left, you can see these pupils looking at our mini model Torah scroll, and basically everything on that table is to do with text. Torah and text and things found in the synagogue. And then on the right, the girl is playing a game of dreidel, which is a traditional game using a spinning top played at the festival of Hanukkah. And you can see the Hanukkah banner behind her. So there are, actually going back to that, the two activities linked in the exhibition, or included in the exhibition, are linked to those two. So next to the Torah and text table, you will find stencils of the Hebrew alphabet. It's a completely different alphabet to English. So pupils are welcome to have a go at writing the Hebrew letters, and Hebrew goes from right to left. So if they are doing that, or even if there is a Jewish volunteer guide there who can tell them how to write their name in Hebrew or another word, you can point out to the pupils, even if there's no volunteer there, you can point out to pupils, but their writing should go from right to left, just like Arabic. And yes, they can have a game of dreidel. On the Hanukkah table are a pot of dreidels, counters, and the rules of how to play. And they can spread out across the floor if there's going to be no space on the table. So really, they should be playing on the floor or on an empty table if there is one. And a couple more photos. We have a section which covers milestone events in Jewish traditional life. So traditions to do with babies being born and how they're named, Jewish weddings, what is a bar and bat mitzvah, the coming of age ceremonies. So Jewish weddings typically happen under a chuppah, a canopy, and you can see these two peoples dressing up as a couple getting married standing under the chuppah. And on the right, you can see these couple of boys who are next to the Torah and text table holding up their little model Torah. We also use the exhibition for interfaith events. As you can see from this, this was taken in Blackburn Cathedral, and you can see the table on the right is all about Shabbat, the day of rest, the Sabbath day, and it's set out for a traditional Friday night Shabbat meal. And we even use this exhibition for, adult groups such as Jewish Work Affinity Network. So this is KPMG in London. They had a Hanukkah event with some of their Jewish colleagues and invited their non-Jewish colleagues to come and have something traditional to eat and to teach them about Hanukkah, and they used our Hanukkah banner. So we use the exhibition for many different things. So I'm going to show you what the banners include. On the right is a banner called What Jewish People Look Like. And I think this is a really lovely start when you welcome the group into the exhibition to have a look at this and explain. This is an exhibition all about Jewish people, but Jewish people are not homogenous. We believe different things and we look different. And you can even say to a group, especially if they're younger, maybe primary or, maybe Key Stage 3, who on this banner do you think might be Jewish? And they might point to this one and this one, but actually everyone on the banner is Jewish. So hopefully it immediately breaks down that prejudice of what Jewish people look like in their opinion. The banner in the middle called Groups Within Judaism. This is really only suitable for older groups, maybe GCSE, but it might be useful for you to look at for your subject knowledge. It goes through the different ideological groups and has an image to try and represent that group. There's a lot of text on there. If it's ever useful to you, I can always send you that text in a Word document via email. But if you're bringing younger children, primary school children, I wouldn't bother looking at this banner. This is the one that really is aimed at GCSE plus. But just to show you that the exhibition does try and present diversity of practice, diversity of opinion, diversity of belief, and obviously of how Jewish people look. The banner on the left, cultural and religious and cultural dress, goes through an explanation of what different items of clothing are for, where they originated from, who wears them, and there is a table of all of these items within the exhibition, and your pupils are welcome to try them on. So that's always something quite fun that they enjoy doing. These banners are about kind of traditions of what happens, how people live, things that happen regularly. So we've got Torah and synagogue, the Sabbath and keeping kosher. And again, you can see there's a mixture of images and text to try and explain some key facts about these things. And all three of these have a table of items that go with them. So on the keeping kosher table, you'll see two sets of plates and cutlery, etc., representing the fact that many people who keep kosher keep dairy and meat completely separate, even to the extent where many people have two sets of plates to really, really separate dairy and meat, so they can't get mixed up even by accident. There's lots of packaging, food packaging with symbols that prove that something's been checked and it's been certified as kosher, etc. And there is a small activity on there actually. If they look at the description of which animals are kosher on this banner, there's plastic animals on the table, and they can separate them into two groups of which animals are kosher, can be eaten, and which animals are not kosher, can't be eaten according to the rules in the Torah. And again, explaining the Shabbat, the Sabbath day, there is that table that you saw in the interfaith photo with a traditional items for a Friday night meal to celebrate the Sabbath. There are red banners, which are a series that go through most of the festivals, not all of the festivals. We don't have one for the Festival of Purim and a couple of others. We have so many festivals. The exhibition would be too big if we included them all. And you can see here Passover, which has its own table, and the Jewish New Year, and Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, which I mentioned previously. There's a banner on Hanukkah, and there's a banner on Shavuot, the Festival of Weeks, you might call it in English, and Sukkot, you might have heard it referred to as the Festival of Tabernacles. These are the life cycle banners, and they all come with their own objects on tables. And one explaining just an overview of the Jewish calendar and the fact that it's a lunar calendar. We have a banner on Israel. This is not meant to be a political banner, and it was produced before October and the atrocities that happened last October 2023. It states hopefully non-political facts about how many people in Israel are Jewish, how many are not Jewish, the fact that it's a beautiful country, just some photos, and the fact that it's important to Jews, Christians, and Muslims as well. And so you get that's hopefully should give you an overview of what the banners look like and what the exhibition includes. And just to show you that sometimes I'm able to go to the venues where the exhibition is on and do teacher training, but I'm also very happy to do teacher training over Zoom if that's ever useful for you and your school. And if you have a group of teachers who teach about Judaism, whether it's primary or secondary, and you'd like me to do a Zoom inset session, please do email me, and I'm very happy to facilitate that, and there's no charge for that. At the exhibition, we also have worksheets available for key stages 1, 2, and 3. They look a little bit like this, and some are on individual festivals and sections of the exhibition, and some are kind of a trail that lead you through the whole thing like this. It talks about food going across all the different areas in the exhibition. So hopefully you will be aware that these are available, and if you want to use them, I'm sure Ben can email them through to you, and you can print them out and bring them with you. There are quite a few to choose from, so print out the ones that you think would be most useful for your students and bring the correct number with you. Okay, so just a few tips to finish off with now that you've seen the exhibition. On arrival, here's some guidelines for your pupils. Let the pupils know that they can touch all of the objects. Please remind pupils, though, to be respectful when handling the objects. In one venue recently, lots of damage was done to items, and I'm talking about deliberate damage, drawing on things, ripping things. It was generally that doesn't happen, but I think it's really important to just say to your pupils, you really are welcome to touch everything, but please remember to be careful and respectful. It would be great if you could remind the pupils not to take objects from one table and leave them on another, because that's just confusing for the next group who comes along. And if you or your pupils have questions, if there are Jewish volunteer guides, please do speak to them. You can ask Ben questions maybe, or anyone else who's there from Sacre, and feel free to email me, and I can answer questions. I can even send you YouTube videos, etc., or websites that can help to answer those questions as well. Like I suggested before, you might want to start with the "What do Jewish people look like" banner, breaking down stereotypes or prejudices that your pupils might have on arrival. And I mentioned the worksheets. All the answers to the worksheets are on the banners. So it encourages your pupils to actually read the text on the banners. As I mentioned, there's the Hebrew writing activity, and there's playing dreidel on the Hanukkah table. And I've got 5 top tips for teaching about Judaism, whether it's at the exhibition or generally in preparation or afterwards. So top tip number 1, try not to say all Jews do something or all Jews believe, because this really isn't the case. The JLE exhibition tries to represent diversity across the community, and a couple of examples of this are the age bat mitzvah for girls is celebrated. In some communities it's 12, and in some communities it's 13. Who wears the different religious and traditional clothing. So there's some information about that on the banner. And like I mentioned, the different ideological streams in Judaism goes into quite a lot of depth on that banner, and in terms of what Jewish people look like. So there's just examples of how we show diversity across the Jewish community. Top tip number 2, don't assume that a pupil knows something or practices at home just because they are Jewish or they say they're Jewish. They might be secular or cultural Jews who don't practice religious practices. So, that banner went through the different religious ideological groups, but there are many Jewish people who have a strong Jewish identity, give themselves the label of Jewish, but actually they might not believe in God at all. And Judaism for them is their ethnicity and their family's heritage and history. And, thinking about the story of Passover, they might say, yes, my ancestors were enslaved in Egypt for over 200 years, but that's nothing to do with God. That's my history. So, whether they're just not religious or whether they are secular Jews, and they might not do these things at home. And it might embarrass the people to say, well, what do you do? Do you know why this happens or why this is done? Top tip number 3, try not to teach Judaism through a Christian lens. So just a couple of examples of how this happens quite often. So Hanukkah is sometimes labeled as the Jewish Christmas. There is no link at all between Hanukkah and Christmas, apart from they're both festivals in the winter. The Torah is not known as the Old Testament because that infers that there's a New Testament that comes along with it, and Jewish people just read the Torah as our Bible. And some people have referred to it as only the Old Testament and not the whole Bible, which actually, from a Jewish point of view, is quite insulting, because the Torah for us is very, very special. We don't need something to accompany it to make it complete. And a synagogue is not a Jewish church. There are many differences between synagogues and churches. Terms such as worship and denomination are Christian terms. I would never say I'm going to worship in a synagogue. I would say that I'm going to synagogue or I'm attending prayer services, something like that. And Judaism does not have a big focus on Messiah or life after death as Christianity does. And this is something which comes up, especially in GCSE. Top tip number 4, it's always good to teach why things are done, not just what is done. So, for example, the talit, the prayer shawl, if you show a pupil the prayer shawl with the tassels on the corners and say, this is a talit, it's a Jewish prayer shawl, it has tassels on the corners. Yes, you're teaching a fact about Judaism, but until you explain why this is worn and what those tassels represent, it doesn't have as much depth or interest or meaning. So, once you explain that actually there's a certain number of strings that make up the fringes, and they're tied in a very particular way. So if you add up the number of strings and knots on a talit, then it adds up to 613, which is the number of commandments in the Torah. Then it makes much more sense. And in the Torah, you could show the pupils there's one of the commandments is to wear, when you wear a four-cornered garment, to wear these fringes, these tassels on the corners, in order to remember the way that Jewish people should be living and all the commandments in the Torah. So suddenly there's so much more depth to it, and it makes a bit more sense. And last one, number 5, don't feel pressure to answer any questions which are political or Israel related, if there are Jewish volunteer guides there, the discussion shouldn't get political, because the visit is about learning about Judaism. And yes, politics and religion and citizenship, etc., have kind of merged, especially in the last couple of years. But this exhibition is purely a religious exhibition about Jewish life, and it's not meant to be political at all. Okay, before leaving, you could say to the pupils, you could get them together to do a kind of plenary and say, ask them, what fact did you learn? Or name and explain one object that you saw that you had never seen before. The shofar, the ram's horn, is really fun to blow. You might want to end up on a really fun, positive note of who could blow the shofar really well. It's quite hard, but if anyone plays the clarinet or anything, they might be able to get a really good sound out of it. And there should be packets of baby wipes. So after each person has had a go at blowing it, you can wipe it and get rid of any germs. And also, pupils should let you know if anything got moved to a different table or damaged by mistake before you leave, just to make sure the exhibition is as it was when they arrived, so it's ready for the next group. That would be massively appreciated. And that is my email address again. So please feel free to get in touch, whether it's with a specific question about the exhibition or something general I can help you with or support you with in the teaching of Judaism. I have an amazing digital resource, a free website we've just created for secondary pupils. So if you're a secondary teacher, especially teaching Key Stage 3, please do get in touch, and I will send you the link for that. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I hope that was useful. And if you have any further questions, do ask Ben or get in touch with me. And I hope you and your pupils enjoy the exhibition visit.